Hi guys! So I just spent the past month at Pratt Precollege program. I had a lot of fun and it was so exciting to once again be away from home and have some much needed independence because I'm growing up and don't get nearly enough of that at home. I took the traditional illustration class and the sequential art class. I gotta say that this experience showed me that my ideal major is definitely sequential art over illustration because I much prefer being able to tell stories in order, and also I feel like you can get away with some things being a little less polished in favor of getting through more story as long as it looks cohesive, which is definitely how I prefer to work. As far as making friends there, it didn't come as easily as it did last year when I went to Micah Pre-College, and I was definitely freaking out about it at first, but by the end of the first week I had managed to make friends with a girl from my illustration class. It definitely gave us a much larger workload than Micah did, but I was able to handle it, and I'd already had previous experience being away, and also was on anxiety meds, so I managed to adapt just fine. The only added struggle I had this year was the introduction of dealing with tics alongside everything, which I haven't really mentioned on my YouTube, but I've mentioned on a few other platforms, but I've been developing those over the past, year, so it's been a time. They weren't too bad at Pratt, but there was one assembly where they were telling us about portfolios and stuff, and they asked the audience what the most important thing in your portfolio was, at which point my tics decided it was a great time to really loudly blurt out, "Your mom!" And then the guy was trying to take it seriously by being like, "Well, yes, your mom may be an inspiration for your art," and I was just sitting there like, oops. At least it made for a fun fact to tell people, like, yeah, I was the your mom person. We also had this other assembly where at one point they were like, "Everyone be quiet," and my tics were like, "This is the perfect time to shout F you." The actual word, but I won't say that on YouTube, the prude. At least it was almost the end of the assembly, so I didn't have to sit there for too long after that. Oh, and we got to go on trips around the city. I got to go to Coney Island at one point, and I rode the Cyclone. Luckily, I didn't end up in a musical. If you know, you know. I went to a bunch of art museums too, like the MoMA and the Guggenheim. I got to see the Starry Night and the Salvador Dali melting clock painting in person, which was super cool. I also went on the trip to K-Town at one point, and my friend and I just hung out in the bookstore the whole time, and it was awesome. And my sequential art class took us to a little comic shop at one point, which was really cool. The only gripe I had with the trips was that they made us go on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and sometimes I just wanted to stay on campus and either have class on Wednesday or just work or chill, but for the most part it was fine, and I did get all my work done. A lot of it got done early, actually, so speaking of the work, I'm gonna go through my illustration class stuff first. The first assignment was to create a hybrid between either two animals, an animal and a machine, an animal and a human, or a human and a machine, but specifically as a way to show how they would adapt to climate change, and then we were supposed to put them in an environment. I kind of sort of maybe definitely got started in my final before critique, and then had to sadly do it over again after getting critique and having to change things. I do like how it came out, though, and the critiques definitely made it better. My idea was for the ants to take over a human body and puppet them around to make them actually take care of the environment, so I showed them making a human throw out pesticides. We also got to draw a nude model on the first day, and that was a new experience I had, and it really wasn't as scary as some people make it out to be. It's a body. We all have them, unless you're a ghost watching this. And here's another page of that. We were supposed to have another day of that illustration class, but they decided to give us time to work on our projects. We also had a costume model in my sequential art class, but I wasn't feeling very well that day when he was there, so I did miss a lot of that. The next assignment was a warped self-portrait. We made grids of pictures of our faces, and then we made another grid, but purposefully made the lines at angles so that when we tried to use the guidelines, it would come out wonky. I personally kind of hate using grids because they make me feel trapped when I'm drawing, but I will say that this one came out interesting. Also, look at my cool new rainbow glasses. I forgot to draw them on myself in the thumbnail, but that's fine since I use contacts sometimes. But look, my rainbow glasses are so cool! The final assignment was to draw 3 illustrations telling the story of a short story that we read. We had 2 choices, this story called Haunting Olivia or a story called Ghost Birds. I did Haunting Olivia, which was about these brothers who had magic goggles that let them see ghosts, and so they were using them to look for their dead sister who had died while getting washed away while crab sledding. The brothers had this whole adventure, and then they theorized that she might be in a glowworm cave, so then they went there, but they didn't find her, and the main guy thinks about how she could be everywhere. So I drew her about to get hit by the wave, and then maybe ending up in the cave and then rotting away there, but I drew her face everywhere so that she could be everywhere. Also, we were supposed to make it magical realism, which is why I drew the hands pushing the wave, because one of the brothers talks about how he has dreams that he pushed Olivia's crab sled, so I took the general idea and had him pushing the wave. Anyway, the next class was sequential art. I worked so fast on these, which is also part of why I think I would be a good sequential art major, because I work really fast. The first assignment was to make a comic based on a song that was 2 pages long, so I decided to use the song Blow My Brains Out alongside my OC named Apolala, who is a character from a really long book that I've been working on in my Google Docs that'll hopefully maybe publish someday when it's finished. I don't know, but I love her. I would usually read the comic, so this is a song, so I guess I'll sing it. Maybe apologies in advance. Sometimes I wish I could lend you my eyes, lend you my hips, and lend you my thighs. Sometimes I wish I could take a new shape, switch out some parts and become a big A. Sometimes I wish I could lend you my ears, lend you my thoughts, and lend you my tears. Sometimes I wish I could take a new form, switch out some parts and become like the norm. Lucky is she who lives unaware, who doesn't get bothered by those who don't care. Lucky is she who lives unaware, who doesn't get bothered by all that's unfair. Unlucky me, who knows way too much, who fights to make changes with music and such. Unlucky me, aware of the pain, all 'cause I happen to have some brain. Also, I am so sorry that apparently I literally realized while reading this that I'm pretty sure I wrote the wrong lyrics at one point in this. So, oops. Too late now. Really setting a great digital footprint with that incredible, totally rehearsed singing. The next assignment was to make an autobiographical comic that was 4 pages long. I decided to do it on my relationship with fandoms and storytelling, which, hey, I sure do hope I have access to with certain things going on in the world right now. Cough, cough. No matter what happens, though, we will keep creating art. They can never take that away from us, okay? Sorry, I can't really get that out of my head right now. But let's go ahead and read the comic. Stories have always been how I connected with people. It's often hard to talk about anything else when they're all I think about. What can I say that's not a reference? Even when I was far apart from friends, it was how I still felt connected to them. But it was hard to find like-minded people when I moved to a new school. And then COVID happened. And that's around when I found fandoms. Finally, a place where my favorite stories were all anyone wanted to talk about, and where I could post some of the worst fan art known to man. But fandoms and stories were what got me through my friendless years of middle school. And my fan art slowly got better. Kind of. But the more I consumed other people's stories, the more I wanted to make my own. It started with fandom OCs, and then they fight on the rock, and they fall off, and then they'll die. But I eventually started coming up with my own universes and stories that were entirely my own. Well, disregarding the ones from when I was 5. And eventually, I did manage to find people who liked the same stories that I did, and I started to figure out how to make friends again. Oh my god, you like the Owl House? Yep. In high school, I found people who had been around me this whole time who I never realized I'd click with. Play D&D with me. Okay. And my new friends introduced me to even more stories. Do you guys know Twisted Wonderland? It's amazing. I love the stories my friends introduced me to. Let's just say there's nothing like seeing yourself in a character. They're just like me for real. I got even more comfortable with projecting some of the worst aspects of myself onto some of my characters. Suffer like I did. I had so many stories I wanted to get out there. So many characters. I really wanted to get them out there, so I started a webcomic. It was hard to draw all of that, and it has been going on for over a year with only about 3 likes and update, but I love it. I do. Life is pain, but I love this story, and my 2 friends do too. Despite this, I still had more stories I wanted to tell, but my dragon characters, I desire to unleash them. Then I went to Pratt Precollege and met the most amazing friend ever, my bestie. So cool. I love her. Scree! We were there too! She wrote books on her phone on the fly, not thinking too much and just having fun with it. I knew how I was going to get my stories out. It's over 300 pages long today and still not done. Someday I want to publish it. Someday, I hope that more people will consume my stories and that they can see parts of themselves in my characters and connect to them in the same way that I was able to with other people's stories. Hey, just so you know, Locking the Elements is in fact real and on Webtoons, and I'll probably be putting the link in the description. Go check it out, wink wink nudge nudge. Anyway, the final project was to create a 5-page long comic about whatever we wanted. However, I have no sense of self-preservation apparently, so I decided to make 9 pages and to cover in like less than 2 weeks. Listen, I have the story up here in my head before going to the program and I had to do it, okay? So now, I present Loops in Boxes, or more accurately, obsessive-compulsive sapphics. Wait, who said that? This totally isn't a metaphor for anything. Loops in Boxes. For years now, every day of my life has looked the same. I run loops, or maybe I should say squares, around this box 100 times every day. Then I have to figure out which specific areas on the wall need to be tapped. It may seem tedious, but this is what the box runs on. It's a small price to pay for immortality. The box keeps me safe. Here, I can never die. Whoa! Oh, hello. I didn't know there were others. Me neither. I'm Aziza, by the way. I'm Aviva. It's nice to know that there are others. Yeah, I had no idea I wasn't the only one in a box. Wait, please stay. I can't be alone again now that I know there are others. I have to finish my loops and taps, but if I hurry, I might have time to join you. I'd like that. Later. Ugh, I hate this part. Yeah, but it must be done. It's how we stay alive. How did you end up here? I could ask you the same question. Fair. I'll tell you my story first. It all started when my mom died. I couldn't help thinking, that's going to be me one day. Which was selfish, I know, but I couldn't bear to be around people who I now knew could die at any moment, and I couldn't live knowing that my life could be gone at any moment as well. So I summoned the god of spirals. I didn't know if it would work, but when I got to the center, they appeared. They told me that they could prevent my body from decaying so long as I stayed in a box, that they would provide, and I did the proper maintenance on it. Who was I to refuse an offer like that? So, now I'm here. Is it wrong that I wish I had a story like that? I don't see why it would be. What is your story? I never had a big event like that. No one close to me ever died, but just the knowledge that it was coming for me someday, it was enough to scare me into doing the ritual. The god of spirals offered me the same thing they offered you. I didn't deserve it like you did. I lived such a normal life, and yet I still ended up here. I guess that means that I was just messed up from the start. No, of course you weren't. Besides, who's to say I wouldn't have found my way here even if my mom had lived? I guess that's true. Finally, I'm finished. I'm so tired. Me too. Of everything. You can't be saying, are you implying that you want to leave? I'm glad to be alive, but at the same time, I want to actually live. We are living. We're alive. We're alive, but we're not alive. I know what you mean, but I'm so scared of leaving if it means that someday I'll die. I know, but in order to live, we have to die. I think you're right. Tomorrow, there will be no more loops. I can't wait to watch this place crumble. I couldn't have decided to do this without finding someone else to accompany me, so thank you. I should be thanking you. I never would have had the confidence to even consider this without you. The next day. No more loops. Right. I need a distraction. That was a great distraction. Yeah, and now we're free. I don't know. Is it bad that part of me still wants to go back? Part of me does too, but there's so much to see out there, and we can make sure that neither of us ever go back there again. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. If you want better and more still images, I will probably be posting everything on Kara shortly. Also remember to read my webcomic Lacking the Elements link in the description. Bye!